Patrick Pointyhat and the Sea Hag. Patrick Pointyhat was a river elf. He had lived in the same village for his entire life, and not so long ago he had saved his village from an evil troll who had plagued the elves for many years. After that, word traveled far and wide throughout the land that Patrick Pointyhat was a hero and a great monster slayer. One day, while Patrick Pointyhat was doing his chores, a woodland elf named Woodland Elves rode up on a white heron. Baldwin explained that his village was being tormented by what they could only imagine was a sea hag. He had been sent by the Woodland Elves to ask Patrick Pointyhat for help in getting rid of the beast. Baldwin Bluehat continued on his tale about how his village had once had a beautiful clear lake and plenty of green plants and trees. Now the Woodland Elves had found that their lake had turned a murky brown and the plants and trees were all dying. There was a foul stench rising up from the ground, and the scholar elf had told them that these were all signs of a sea hag. They didn't have any proof for sure that it was a sea hag, but they believed it was what was causing all the trouble. The Woodland Elves had learned that sea hags could poison the water from the evil that seeped out through their tentacles. They had also command over the water and could cause tidal waves or storms at will. They would kill and eat any living things that came into contact with them. Baldwin told Patrick Pointyhat that sea hags mostly were active at night and slept during the day, and that once they had found a place they liked, they wouldn't leave until all the living things around it were dead. Patrick Pointyhat agreed to go with Baldwin Bluehat to the place where the Woodland Elves lived and try and help them get rid of the sea hag. From the Woodland Elves village, Patrick Pointyhat set off through the woods in the direction of the woodland lake. He needed to be sure that it actually was a sea hag and not some other beast, so he went to see it for himself. He was careful to dodge the pools of quicksand that were quite prevalent throughout the woods near the lake. As Patrick drew closer to the lake, he could see for himself the effects that Baldwin Bluehat had told him about. The plants were in fact dying, and there was a terribly foul stench rising up. At last, Patrick Pointyhat reached the shores of the lake. He hid himself behind a large rock to wait for whatever beast would appear. The moon was shining brightly, and eventually the sea hag poked up her ugly head above the surface of the lake along with a slimy, dark tentacle. She was admiring some sort of amulet that was wrapped tightly in her gruesome tentacle. When Patrick Pointyhat saw the creature, he knew he had to go back to the Woodland Elves village and tell them what he had seen. He needed to speak with the scholar elf and learn as much as he could about sea hags before he could even dream of defeating one. The scholar elf looked through many of his books and was able to finally tell Patrick that the only way to defeat the sea hag was by drowning. Patrick thought this sounded impossible, as sea hags lived and slept underwater, but all of a sudden the plan came to him. Patrick had seen that this sea hag had treasured that amulet by the way she had been staring at it in the moonlight. He went back to the woodland lake during the day when he knew the sea hag would be asleep. He looked for the bubbles rising to the surface and figured that that was where she was resting. He put a long hook into the water and fished out her cherished amulet, knowing for certain the sea hag would be angry, and Patrick believed she would surely chase him to get it back. Patrick Pointyhat was right. The sea hag was furious. She rose up out of the lake onto the rocks and screamed with rage so loudly she stirred the wind into a stormy vortex with her cries. Patrick knew he had to act quickly or else he would be caught, so he ran with all his might into the woods. The sea hag was not as agile on land as she was in the water, but despite only having tentacles for legs, she moved quite rapidly in pursuit of the thief that had stolen her prized amulet. Patrick ran to the place where he had seen the pools of quicksand, and without hesitation he threw the sea hag's cherished amulet into the middle of the quagmire, and then scampered up a tree to hide. Just as Patrick Pointyhat had hoped, the sea hag dove right into the middle of the quicksand, following her amulet without another thought. The sea hag struggled to the surface moments later, clutching the amulet in her claws. She was so angry about being stuck in the pool that she couldn't control her own powers. A huge tidal wave rose up out of the quicksand and engulfed the sea hag, trapping her and eventually drowning her in its sticky, sandy midst, never to be heard from again. Patrick Pointyhat returned to the village of the Woodland Elves and told them how he had defeated the sea hag. Soon the water would return to its clear state, and the plants and trees would flourish once again. The Woodland Elves rejoiced and declared an official day of celebration in thanks to their hero Patrick Pointyhat for saving them from the evil sea hag. The end.